got into vintage audio a year ago, but there's a lot of things he still doesn't know, so he started up a channel on YouTube, and here he is now, the Vintage Newbie.
Oh, geez, you're early. Hi, welcome to another episode of the Vintage Newbie. My name is Vernon Smith, and I am the Vintage Newbie. Secrets revealed. Today, since I'm still wearing my Radio Shack shirt, we're going to be talking about all this Radio Shack realistic gear right here. And today is no exception. We're going to be discussing today, in case I didn't say today enough times today, the Realistic SCT-11 or SCT-11, depending on how you prefer to arrange those numbers. I'm number number neutral. I accept all denominations of binary numbers. But I guess we'll say SCT-11. Why not? The SCT-11 Cassette Deck from Realistic by Radio Shack. Here we are at the front of the Realistic SCT-11 stereo cassette tape deck. Oh, pretty cool, Vintage Newbie. Aw, thanks everybody. Okay, let's start by powering it on. And you go right over here to the power button, which is located right under the tape counter, so you can see how long, which it's not really like true to seconds. I don't know why they design tape counters like that, plus they go to hundreds instead of 60s, so but I guess it's just to kind of mark where you are in your recording. Anywho, so yeah, that's how it looks, all lit up with these cool meters right there. And I love meters, yes I do. I would marry them if it wasn't against the law. I think, well, yeah, definitely one of my favorite things about vintage audio equipment is the meters. They're just cool looking. I like watching them bounce to the music. Bounce to the music. This one, from what I've seen online, and hey, the internet never lies, does it? No, it doesn't. This was, I believe, made by Hitachi, because I did see a Hitachi D410 tape deck that looked pretty much exactly like this. One of my favorite things about this particular one is the loading bay on how you put cassette tapes into it now. With a standard cassette player, the kind we all grew up with in the 80s and 90s, unless you didn't grow up in the 80s and 90s. Hell, even if you were around in the 70s. They kind of all opened up like that. Put your tape in, front loading kind of thing there. But this one, the Realistic, the real thick dick SCT-11. Oh, it doesn't load front ways. It loads diagonally. You don't believe me? Well, check this shit out. You just plop it up right there. And, well, you don't put it in like that, which you would think you would, because that's the way you drop a tape. Because that's the way you would normally load it in there. But no, there's no tape heads that come out that way. So you gotta flip, turn it upside down. And I'd I'd like to take a moment to just sit right there, and I'll tell you how you load a tape into the cassette deck right there. I rhymed there and there. Anywho, plop it in, plop it down, and there you go. Good to go. You get to start playing. You get to start pushing all these buttons like the pause, the fast forward, the play, the rewind, the record, and the stop and eject. Which when you stop and eject it, it opens up the little bay door for you. Isn't that neato? Yeah, it is. Alright, now with this one though, some of the buttons don't always work. Sometimes it'll play and then stop randomly for no reason. Sometimes it won't rewind or fast forward. Sometimes it will. Let's see if it will right now. Now it's not connected to the receiver, so I can press play and not have to worry about it playing. Yeah, see, it kind of starts going and then it stops. But, well, that was me stopping it. Let's see if it rewinds. Yeah, it took a second, but it got going. That's cool. Will it fast forward? Yeah, alright, cool. Well, this was one of those times when it actually does what it's supposed to. But it doesn't always. So, I guess I look like a liar. Anywho, so like I said, when I got the STA-90 receiver, they threw in the SCT-11 Cassette Deck, and it was not working at all. So I changed the belts, cleaned some knobs, because like one of the meters would just go and the needle would bury all the way over to the side. So I cleaned these with some Deoxit F5 fader lube, because they're not clicky switches like these. They're smooth gliding ones. Alright. And yeah, it cleared up a good bit of the sound. Now this actual one sounds like about, I don't know, 80% okay. It was definitely not the best sounding cassette deck I have ever owned, or that I even currently own. But we'll get to those in future episodes. But yeah, there might be a problem with the heads. I don't exactly know. I did all that I could, and that's all I can do for now. These things can go for anywhere between $40 to $200, and I did see one on Facebook. It wasn't on Marketplace. Yeah, it was on Marketplace, but it was a local pickup from a fella that I know on Facebook, who lives up in Indiana, and he restored it, was selling it for like $80, which was a really, really good price for this one, especially because like I have complete faith in that dude's work. He worked at Radio Shack for a number of years. He sold these things. He fixed these things. And if he was selling one for $80, oh man. If I had an extra $80, I would totally hit him up and try and buy it from him. But I don't. So I'm just stuck with this one. Oh, well. Yeah, so let's go through the other functions, okay? Because we're already 7 minutes deep just into this segment alone, and I have a tendency to ramble on, which I really need to fucking stop. So first, your source selection. You can push it in for a microphone if you're recording something with a microphone, which would plug into the microphones, your left one and your right one. Or if you have it out, it'll be from whatever source you have hooked up. Well, I mean, the aux source would just be the receiver, and whatever you have plugged into the receiver that you're recording onto a cassette tape. Let's see, you can choose from the type of tape. And see, they have little nubs for when the button's pushed in, or big nubs for when the button's out. And you can choose, this is pre-metal tape, at least not like in the heavy metal kind, so you could still play some Sabbath on it. But in the type of tape, like if it's the ferro or the ferrochrome, your type 1s and your type 2s. Your type 1s would be like this kind. You see where it says like type 1 right there? You see that? Yeah, you do. That's just an ordinary cassette, like the one we have in here right now. See? IEC type 1. Your chromium ones, fucking gravity, man. Your chromium ones would be like this fudgy FR2 by Fudgy. Yeah, but see, it's type 2 cassette. Chromium. Here's what the cassette looks like without being in a case. Could have had this prepared, but I don't. And this feels like actually quite a bit heavier than this one. Look at this. This is like light as a feather. Get this one. Oh man. Man, oh man. But the sound quality is vastly different. The chromium ones have a lot less tape hiss. And I just discovered that tonight when making a cassette on the tape deck that we'll be speaking about next time, boys and girls. So you can choose between normal and chromium. Oh, and look, it's got a little chromium light. Now, moving right along, since that took me 3 minutes to get through just those two buttons. You've got your Dolby noise reduction for recording and playing, and you can do it for just, you know, making tapes or whenever you're recording off of the radio for Dolby FM, because that was a thing for a few years. Next, you've got your knobs that you can adjust when recording. That if you're recording and these needles are creeping into the red, which will make them sound distorted, then you turn them down some. But if the needles are just right there as you're recording, you turn them up some, so it'll get like more in this mid-range on there. And you can actually separate. You see where this little groove is right there? That's because there's two separate sections to this knob. One goes to the, I'm doing this with one hand, to the right speaker. One goes to the left, and I don't remember which one it is, but see, now the grooves are separated. I haven't recorded on this thing in quite a while, so I can't remember if this one's right or left, or this one's right or left. But anyway, if you've got them kind of near the same, and you've got a spot that you know for the most part sounds good, then you can move this little knob there with the red line, and if it's like, yeah, it usually sounds good right there for the most part, and then you could adjust it if you listen to other things. But if that's kind of your baseline, then there you go. Output level, same, you can split it between left and right, I think. And when I say I think, I mean you can't. That's just basically a volume knob to the externals. So there you go, boys and girls, ladies and gentlemen, non-binary specific folks of all shapes and sizes. The Realistic SCT-11 stereo cassette deck functions, feature, and reviews. Yeah, this thing is cool. I love tapes. I don't know why. I just love the format. I hate the tape hiss, which is why the noise reduction can come in handy for reducing that. But in my opinion, it also kind of cuts out some of the treble. So I usually just leave the noise reduction off. Oh, and the final thing on here, the phones jack. You want to guess what that's for? Well, if you said plugging in headphones, you're fucking wrong. It's actually... Oh. Nope, that is what it's for. Sorry. I get those two confused, being right and wrong. So that about covers it for all the functions of the SCT-11 from Realistic from Radio Shack. And there you have it, folks. The functions and features of the Realistic SCT-11 stereo cassette deck from Radio Shack. All in all, well, not all in all, but overall, pretty cool looking piece of vintage stereo equipment. I love the way it looks. I'd give it an 8.5 in the looks department. You know, scratch that. I'm pulling out all the stops. I'm giving it an 8.6 in looks. No, probably close to a 9. I love it. It's cool. It's compact, but not too compact. Is there such a thing? I don't know. It's got the silver face. It's got the simulated wood top and sides. It's got the diagonal loading bay. I love that. It's got the meters. Super love that. So, yeah. I'll give it between 8.5 and a 9 in the looks department. Sound-wise, though, and this is just this one, because I have heard from people that this can be a really nice sounding cassette deck. But this personal one of mine, I don't know, I'll give it like a 5.5 to a 6, because it sounds okay. It sounds passable. Like you could put a tape in and just kind of have it on in the background if there's people and there's other noises and, you know, maybe another cassette deck playing. It's not too bad. But other than that, no. So it's not really going to be something I'm going to be using. But it is something I'm going to be keeping. Maybe one day I'll get it worked on. Maybe not. Probably not. So it's probably just going to sit here. Yeah. So that concludes my review and my ramble on the SCT-11 from Radio Shack. Oh, man. It's 1:40 in the morning. I should probably go to bed. But I'm not, because as long as I have this shirt on, I have other Radio Shack realistic gear to discuss. So that's what I'm going to do. But I'm going to hit stop, and then I'm going to do that, and then break it up into other videos so that I can just milk this for the millions and millions that it's worth. Good night, and have a blessed tomorrow.